let's start at the beginning, how it all started for you in the early days. How did you get to become a football player in the first place?
I was training with St Mirren in Scotland, who now have fallen on hard times, but when I was there, they were a Premier League club. The manager at the time, a man called Alec Miller, who some of you might remember, who was the assistant to Rafa Benitez, Liverpool in Champions League fame. He was a manager at the time. He asked me, he'd watched me playing, and he asked me to sign a professional contract at 16. I had just finished my university, not my university, but my high school exams. I was pondering whether to go to university, but he convinced me to pursue a career in football, and that's when it started.
And your first club that you joined was?
St Mirren.
St Mirren. So you played for St Mirren. You started off that you were a defender.
Yes, yes. Well, no, actually, that's not correct. I was a midfield player, but Alex and Martin Ferguson, Alex's brother, they looked at my potential, or lack of, and thought maybe push him back a wee bit further. So I went back to left back and then centre back. I thought the further back you can get him out the road, and that's where I ended up, you know, in my career, playing as a defender predominantly.
You mentioned there Alex Ferguson. Did you ever play under the great man?
When I was a younger player at St Mirren, I 17. It was the end of the season. I was asked to go on loan to Aberdeen for a month. It was to be honest, it was an underhand deal between Aberdeen and St Mirren. Alec, who was the manager at Aberdeen at the time, they just won the European Cup, Winners' Cup and the Super Cup, essentially the best team in Europe at the time. He had spoken to Alec Miller about taking me up there on a loan basis for a month. They were going on an end of season trip to Holland. A few of the players were out. He didn't want to cancel the tournament or them going, but he wanted, you know, obviously to bring players along. So he asked Alec if I could go along. The board of directors at St Mirren didn't know about it. The power that Alec had in Scotland, well, that he had subsequently down here in England as well, meant that he could essentially do anything. And he asked Alec, Alec agreed. It was under the table, and I went up to Aberdeen for a month. We went to Holland to play in a tournament, an end of season tournament. In that tournament there was teams like Porto, Ajax, Feyenoord, who at that time in the mid-80s were great teams. The first game we played against Porto, who the following year went on to win the European Cup, which is now the Champions League. Great team. The first game we played them, it was nothing each at half time. Alec came in, and at that time at Aberdeen it was a team full of international players, and he was raging, absolutely raging. And he went round each player, everybody got the full hairdryer. He turned it on and we were getting it. And you know, Willie Miller, Gordon Strachan, Alec McLeish, the whole lot, we all got it. And he came round to me, and I was last in there, and he started over here. And I think he'd kind of ran out of steam by the time he got to me. And but he had to say something, so he went, "You," and he'd ran out of steam. He didn't know what to say. He went, "You're just a boy." I went, "Oh right, okay, that'll do me." You know, but by the time he got to me, I was almost in tears. You know, 'cause I thought he's going to kill me here. He's going to crucify me. But that was it. He made his presence known. But he finished off with, "Look, you're the best team in Europe, and I wouldn't trade you for anybody you know, go out and do what you do. The game finished nothing each, and I mean Porto, as I said, the following season they won the European Cup, again now the Champions League. They were a fantastic team, and the fact that a Scottish team, which it was all Scots, could hold their own and more with a team like that, you know, it shows you the difference between then and now. It's like drastically different. But Alec Ferguson, he was like he's like a godfather in that, you know, the old mafia godfathers, in that he'll ask a favour of you, and he makes it very personal. I mean, when he was at Manchester United, he did what, 22, 25 players, millionaires, every single one of them. How do you motivate 25 millionaires to play well? You can't offer them more money. You know, they'll spend more money or they'll lose more money on the bus away to the game. You know, £100,000, no problem. How do you motivate 25 millionaires? He made it a very personal thing, almost like a family. And he got to know you, he got to know your family, he got to know your auntie, your uncle, your grandfather, and he makes it very personal. And if you let him down, it's a very personal thing. That's the way he treats players. If you do right by him, he'll defend you to the hilt. He'll give you a couple of chances, but if you make a third mistake, you're out the door. But if you do right by him, like for instance Eric Cantona, I mean he assaulted someone in the stand, and normally that would be out the door, but he defended him. But if you cross that line, you're out the door. Keane, Jaap Stam, so many others. That's the way he operated, and that's Alec Ferguson for you.
Would you have been the one manager that had the biggest influence on you?
No, actually, because I was there for such a short period of time. He's enormous. He has an enormous, how do you call it, backwash in terms of what he leaves behind him. He creates such a legacy wherever he goes, and he has done. Every single club from, you know, wherever he started. Anyone that's tried to emulate him, they've got no chance. Absolutely no chance. You know, you can see it at Aberdeen, you can see it at Manchester United. They'll never get to the stage, they'll never get to the position that he was in. Getting back to your question, he was an influence, but no, he wasn't the greatest influence on me. Probably latterly in my career, no one would probably know him. It's a man called Atle Edvardsson. He became the national coach of Iceland. He was the coach of my last team. As a player, he played for Borussia Dortmund, and I think it was Schalke. He was similar to Ferguson actually, in that he made it a very personal thing with you and every player. He was not a great coach. I was going to say similar to Alec Ferguson, but Alec was a good coach. He wasn't the best, he was a good coach, but he was the best man manager. Atle was similar. He was very, very good at man managing. You can get coaches 10 a penny, but it's being able to manage people.
And the highlight at St Mirren, you played in the Scottish Cup final. Was
That
a highlight?
It was a highlight. Yeah.
Hampden Park?
Yeah. 80,000. Yeah. Yeah, for a 19-year-old, it's a great event. There was other occasions. When I was at Aberdeen, we played Rangers. You know, a cup final again, league deciders. At the time when I was in Aberdeen, we were always second best to Rangers. You probably remember when Rangers, when they played Leeds in 92, 93, they beat them they were a great team. That year we finished, at Aberdeen, we finished second to them in everything. probably any other year we would have won the treble, but then Rangers were the greatest team, great team. They had great individual players, and we couldn't beat them. Essentially, we just could not beat them. They were probably one of the best teams in Europe. Certainly, probably the best team in Britain at that time.
And Aberdeen at the moment, are they the team you follow?
No. I don't follow any team actually. I have a soft spot down here for Newcastle and Everton. I know, but really I don't follow the game. Not so much I don't follow the game. I don't have a favourite team.
And then having played for here, you then, before you transitioned, obviously, which we'll move on to in a minute, but you moved to Iceland. Tell us a little bit about Iceland. I'm not sure there's anyone here who's ever played in Iceland or managed there.
No. It was towards the end of my career. I was, I had very few other options, and I thought, right, I'll go there, make a couple of bob, and I thought I was playing with a bunch of farmers and fishermen, essentially. I mean, I was honest about it. But when I went to the team, my first training session, I always remember, I had the ball in my hands. It was a throw in. I threw the ball in. It was just a training session. I threw the ball in, and I was about to apologise to the boy that I threw it to because it was a bad throw. But he took it in his chest, spun round, and just wrapped it into the top corner. And I thought, wow, what a player this is. And it was Eidur Johnson. Yeah, exactly. And I found out afterwards there was about 4, 5 internationals, Icelandic internationals in the team. As you know now, Iceland is really, really, growing in the European and world game. I mean, it won't be long before they qualify for a World Cup. And that was a real eye-opener as to a small country, I mean, a population the size of Reading, who are mad about football. They love the Premier League, love English football, and they have a way of producing players that can adapt in any circumstance and who are technically fantastic.
Is it true that they all love Spurs?
No, they've got supporters club. I mean, they love many clubs. Yeah, they do have a big Spurs fan club over there. Yeah.
How do you know that?
Yeah.
I read AtTheMatch.
You can come again.
Yeah. But no, Iceland was a big eye opener for me. I finished there playing wise. My last game, it was just before the match. I got an injury. We were playing against Brøndby in the Champions League qualifier, and I injured myself in the warm-up. I tore my hamstring, and that was me finished. That finished my career. The club asked me to be the assistant manager and then the manager subsequently, and that was a great experience. The manager at the time, when I was assistant, it was a guy called Peter Peterson. You wouldn't remember. He played for Anderlecht and Feyenoord. He resigned halfway through the season, and I was asked to take over. And my first game in charge was in the Champions League qualifier away in Tirana. So it's a kind of bit of a headache. But again, a great experience. Thoroughly enjoyed it.
So you've gone from playing over 16, 17 years football, you've played in front of Hampden Park Scottish Cup final. You then transition out of being a football player, manager, that industry, and become a lawyer. Tell us a little bit about how that all came about. How do you?
Yeah, it wasn't
that many out there who have done that.
No, I mean I only know one or two others that have done it. Actually, as a chap that played for Spurs, Gudni Bergson.
Yes.
He's now a lawyer. it wasn't by design. When I was just starting my career at St Mirren, Alec Miller had asked me to become a full-time player, but I'd got all the necessary exam results at school to go to university, and I was in two minds, but I made the decision, right, I'll become a professional player. But I'd always had the hankering at the back of my mind, right, when my career finishes, thank you, I'd like to go back to it. And when my career was winding down, particularly after the injury against Brøndby, I enrolled part-time in Scotland in a local university. It wasn't by choice that I did law. It was just by accident. I looked at the prospectus and I thought, well, what do I not want to do here? And I scribbled out the ones that I didn't want to do. And I was left with law and economics. Did that. I came down here because I thought this is a place to practice law in relation to sports. But I had to basically reset law again because it's a different legal system. Anyway, long story short, I qualified in 2009. I was lucky enough, I went to one of the big international law firms here in London that have a huge law practice, sports law practice. Was exposed to many high profile cases involving individuals, clubs, governing bodies. I then went on to another firm, spent a bit more time dealing with players from the Premier League, La Liga, Serie A, and now I'm head of the sports law team at a local firm in Baker Street. And that's it in brief.
And from your playing days, early playing days, how different is it today in the sports law with the introduction of the Premier League, for example, with the whole commercial?
Yeah, the Premier League's a monster. It's in terms of the finances, it's just off the scale. It's provided players in the Premier League with untold wealth. But in saying that, the rest of Europe, you've got many countries, particularly towards going east, that can't even pay the players, 3-4 months on the trot. I think it's about 3/4 of the players in Europe aren't getting paid, for 3 months or so. So here in the Premier League, it's a phenomenal machine. Whether it'll continue growing, I don't know, but the Premier League itself is just, from a commercial and corporate perspective, it's a monster, and it's just absolutely incredible. That's all I can say about it, really.
And for the sports law side, does that
Yeah.
give a whole other dimension to it?
Yeah. When I started playing, sports law was, it was unheard of. But now, because of the huge amounts of money in the game, and all the various spin-offs and various issues, social media, corporate litigation, essentially so many issues. Because of that and because of the money involved, you're going to bring lawyers into it. I suppose it's not so much ambulance chasers as such, but we're going to feed off that, essentially.
And something else that didn't exist in your day, the whole social media.
Yeah. That is a good and a bad thing. Social media, I don't need to say it. Everybody here is no doubt they've got a mobile phone. No doubt you're on Twitter, you're on Facebook, you're on LinkedIn, whatever it might be. It's it allows you to access so many people, so many things, but another, it's very intrusive. Football players well, clubs have realised the benefit of it. Football players haven't. Well, they are slowly, but many of them haven't caught on to the damage it can do to them. That's where lawyers come in. And we can advise them as to what they can and can't say. They can effectively get themselves sacked by one sentence that they put on Twitter, on Facebook, or whatever. One sentence, made in the heat of the moment, I can hate this team, boom, they're out the door. So social media, it's a double-edged sword.
Are there any questions from the floor before I continue? Yes, Wayne.
Do you feel that being a retired player, it gives you an extra level of understanding when you represent a player?
Oh yeah, without a doubt. It's a whole host of advantages over. You mean represent a player what as in an agency?
Well,
when
when you're dealing with the player, because you're an ex-player, you've got this level of understanding that another lawyer might not have.
Yeah, players are, particularly the ones in the Premier League, have very tender, shall we call it, egos that need to be massaged. It's always been the case, but particularly now, their egos need to be massaged, and there's issues specific to football players that you don't get in any other industry. It's unique to football. And I've dealt with other industries, I've dealt with other employees in various walks of life, and I have yet to find these kind of similar traits in football. So yes, it gives me an insight. Yeah, I know what this person is talking about in a football context. What his issues are, what his problems are, and how I can solve them. Yeah, it gives me a big advantage over other lawyers.
And presumably they've got greater confidence in you because you were in the business.
Yes, exactly. I can relate to them and they can relate to me.
Yes, Ravid.
You refer to the Premier League as a monster. Is that a good or a bad thing? And do you expect the bubble to burst at some point soon?
Good question. Monster, it's both. It's a good thing in that the from where it started, 1992, to now, it's from a corporate sense, a corporate model. You probably couldn't find anything better, from where it started. Because of that, does it need to pay attention to the FA? Does it need to pay attention to the Football League or even UEFA or FIFA for that matter? Because we're doing fine. Look at our profits, look at the sponsorship, 5 point whatever billion. Thanks very much. We don't need to listen to anyone else. We're operating quite well, thank you. But because of that, it's like a black hole. It's sucking everything in with it, to the expense of the Football League, to the expense of the FA. The development of younger players in England has been stymied to a huge extent. I don't know who it was, but he actually said that young players coming through in England need to go out and play in Europe to get experience. It's a bit like the Harlem Globetrotters. You've got the best players in the world coming here, but it's killing the development of the younger players. That's the downside to it. It's brought in huge revenues to the game, but is that being spread out further down the leagues? I don't know. The Premier League say it is. I don't know. I don't think so. It's a monster, yeah, in that it's enormous, it's huge, it's growing, but there's good and bad side. Will it continue? Will the bubble burst? Nothing lasts forever. And my worry is what will happen when it does.
It would seem that the footballers in the Premier League are earning obscene amounts of money. But it would also seem that a lot of clubs in the Premier League are getting more and more into trouble. How do you equate the two?
I mean, yeah, players are earning more and more money. I think the average salary in the Premier League is about, for your average player is about £30,000 a week, give or take. I'm not sure whether the clubs are running into trouble actually, financially, if that's what you mean. I'm not sure. I don't know about that. Particularly those clubs that are looking to compete in Europe, because you've got the financial fair play rules that they need to abide by. Look at Chelsea, for instance. Look at Manchester City. Chelsea, they seem to be operating in very prudently financially. So I'm not sure whether they're getting into trouble.
Well, if you look at maybe the top 6 or so,
Yeah.
clubs, they're fine.
Yeah.
But they've got outside support.
Yeah.
But the bottom clubs are not necessarily in that
Yeah,
position.
it might be those. It's the teams trying to stay in the league, and the teams probably in the Championship trying to get in, get to the kind of promised land of the Premier League. For instance, like QPR, the problems that they've got themselves into, trying to get into the Premier League, stay in it, come down, and the financial mess they're in now. You've got that problem. It's on the periphery. The clubs that are in the league and are established, then the windfalls they're getting, from this, 5.2 billion, various other sponsorships. It's although they might have a significant debt, it's easily being serviced, so that there's no financial issues that I can see. It's just at the bottom end of the Premier and the top of the Championship, really. So I think, that's really an answer to your question.
Yes, sir.
You said that the issues that some of your clients face are specific to football.
Yep.
Is it because of the money? Is it because of the money that's in football, or is it something else to do with football?
You mean in terms of what the problems that I need to deal with, or the legal matters? No, in quite a lot of my cases have been out with England, actually, European or worldwide. It's clubs who can't or won't pay the players. They've gone to clubs in Europe. I'm not just saying players, coaches, managers, on big contracts, and for whatever reason the club won't pay them or can't pay them. And I've had to come to the players, coach, managers' aid, really. And generally with that kind of thing, it's gone before FIFA and subsequently the CAS. Here in England, it's not so much they're not getting paid. It's more how much they're getting paid, and they can't agree. For instance, a transfer fee. They can't agree how much to pay. Not so much how much to pay, but one club says X, another club says Y, so it goes to the Premier League to decide it. So in effect, there's too much money here. Whereas out with these shores, there's not enough. That's the disparity we've got here, unfortunately.
And finally, yes, sorry.
A club like Bolton Wanderers, for example,
Yeah.
who players are not getting paid or haven't got paid, is that something that they would turn to a sports lawyer?
Yep.
The players individually, because obviously the club can have a way of dealing with the players, but
Yep.
individually would the players contact a sports lawyer
Mhm.
in that sense?
Yeah, That's a good point. Actually, I acted for several players at a big club. They're now in League Two, South Coast, doing very well, top of the league. You know, I don't need to say who it is. They went into administration. I had to act for the players. The club obviously had, you know, their own representation. The administrators were called in, but the players needed advice. The union, the players' union, can only do so much and will only give so much advice. But ultimately, it comes down to their contracts and what it states there. Because if they're not careful, players will get ripped off. You know, it's as simple as that. In a situation like that, you know, where a club or the administrator's looking to save money wherever he can, you know, you've got the creditors rule where players essentially get paid first.
Sure.
If a club can make a saving there, they'll do it, or an administrator, I should say, can make a saving, he'll do it to the player's expense. So that's when they need someone like myself.
In a situation like that, just not harbouring on that, but where do the players sit in the pecking order in terms of
They're
being paid?
top of the tree.
Right. And contractually, for example, if a player wasn't getting paid for a number of weeks or months, where do they sit contractually with the club?
I can say we might need to have a talk about this later on. There's an issue. I mean, it depends at the time and it depends the circumstances, but if it's ongoing and the club has made no effort to pay him, and it doesn't look likely that they will pay him, then effectively he could serve notice and walk away. In FIFA parlance, it's sporting just cause, but that's over a certain period of time. That's quite a lengthy period of time. But you would be looking to speak to the club firstly to see, look, you know, I'm overdue X amount of wages, whatever it might be. Are you going to pay me this? Is there any prospect of that? If not, then you look to get out of the contract, and there shouldn't be an issue there.
And finally, we've got a young player in the room here, Norte. Is that right? What advice would you give to young players today trying to make it in the game?
Sorry, who do you play for at the moment? If I don't. Okay. How old are you? 21. I mean, the same applies now as it did in my day. You have to be very, very single-minded. It's a ruthless business. The attrition rate, I think I read something somewhere. There's 10,000 players in the academy system. Of that, I think 1% get offered a professional contract. Of that 1%, 2/3 are out of the game by the time they're 21. So
don't let that put you off. We believe in you.
No, well that's it comes on. I'm going to come on to that. You need to believe in yourself. You'll get many people knocking you, and putting you down. You know, they'll queue up to do that to you. And the further on you go in your career, the harder that will get. Because if you play against, in bigger crowds, you'll have 25, 30,000 people willing to knock you down. Again, you need to be very single-minded. You need to. It's not just a 9-to-5 job; it's your whole life. It's in essence, you can't switch off from it, and you have to think like a footballer for 24/7 if you want to make it to the highest level.
Welcome, Ali. Ali, Bromley FC. Not starting, he's been playing for a while.
Okay.
So,
okay.
But I want to just take the opportunity, I'm sure you'll all agree, to thank you, David. Thank you for your insights. It's been delightful to listen to you and to see the transitions, and I'm sure we can all take something away that we've learned from here, please all feel free to stay. The hot food is coming around again. Drinks will continue to be served, so please feel free to mix and enjoy each other's companies. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Ed.
Thank you.